the technology's here. We don't go backwards. We got two ways to look at it. And I know there's a lot of fear around it. And there should be. Because like everything else, internet was great, but we found there's some evil to internet. There's some bad to the internet. And bad's not in the technology, it's in the people. So it's here. We're not going to get rid of it.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen AI podcast. Today we have on Steve Cassell of the Steve Cassell Band. No, I'm just kidding. Can you share a little bit about your company and the work that you're doing, just to kind of open up the top of the show here, Steve?
Well, the company I'm with right now is Prairie Mobile Communications. We're a nationwide company. We're based out of Winnipeg. We've been in the wireless communications industry for about 56 years now. We span across from eastern Ontario all the way to western British Columbia. We're Coquitlam. I'd like to think we're an industry leader in what we do. Again, that's wireless communications. We're more of a solutions provider, I believe, than your traditional, what people would call a radio shop. We have an engineering department. We have planning department. We have all the departments that allow us to operate in any arena, whether it's planning big systems for large scale customers or simple little installs in a vehicle that a customer just needs communications in their workforce. I've been doing this in this industry for 27 years. My job spans from basically one end of the company to the other. I work with just about every branch in integrating ideas, practices, and policies, technologies.
Wow, that's quite an extended period of time to be with one company. You've been there almost half of that company's life.
Well, to be honest with you, I got to be honest. I've been with this company for 3 years. Before that, I had my own company that I worked from the ground up. I was there for 22 years, and now I've been here for 3 years. I was with JBC Kenwood. You're familiar with that manufacturer, for about a year and a half over COVID until I took this position.
Ah, okay. So you've seen a lot of changes then over the time that you've been involved in the space. I'd love to kind of get maybe a Coles Notes synopsis of some of the experiences that you've had to kind of lead you to where you are now.
That's a long question. Yeah. Basically, I started as a young technologist. I graduated from electronics engineering technology way back in 1997, and started as a technologist in this industry. Quickly moved to a leadership role after a few years, which we grew the business. We're in Northern Alberta. We grew the business to a pretty successful business in our industry. And we sold to, who's now my competitor, we sold to a larger American company. Through all of that, I've seen a lot of change, of course. Grew a lot in the business world, grew a lot in the technology world. That's led to other positions, like I said, with JBC Kenwood, and now the Director of Integrations role I have here with this current company that I'm with.
So tell me a little bit about the role that you play now with Prairie Mobile.
So I guess it's a dual role. I'm a general manager for the branch here in this town. So we started this branch up 3 years ago from it's very much a startup. So not one customer, not one pay-per-click, I'd like to say, day one. And we've grown tremendously over 3 years. So that's a big part of what I do. But the other part of what I do is I'm a Director of Integrations. We're a company that's growing in leaps and bounds. We do acquisitions. As well as startups like we did here in Grand Prairie, as well as Red Deer. We did one as well a number of years ago. And a big part of that role for me is to help with the integration of things, because I'm familiar with acquisitions and integrations and all the technologies, because I've been in this industry for my whole career. I work with a lot of the other branches, especially the ones that we newly acquire, to help them become part of the fold, for lack of a better term. If anyone's been through an acquisition, it's a tough process for the company that's been acquired. It's a brand new culture. Oftentimes we go from a single individual owner into a corporation, and like I said, I'm a life coach as well. I use those tools to help dispel some fears that come along with those, and get the processes in place that now are part of a corporation as opposed to either single owned or maybe a couple people own that one business for a long time. And it's quite a journey for both the past ownership of that company plus the past employees. So that's what I do. I travel all over the country, helping these other businesses become part of a larger, much larger corporation.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly challenging, and I guess it seems to me like it necessitated this life coach kind of branch off of the things that you do. That's a bit of a departure. I'd love to get to know a bit about more about that.
Well, I'd love to tell you about it. So, to be honest with you, it's hard to say which one came first. It kind of came hand in hand. And it's a very, very long story, but and I won't get into too much because it need a lot more time than what we have today. But through my tenure, going from being an entry level employee to an owner of a company that was pretty successful, I learned a lot. And I learned a lot about management. I learned a lot about what it does to leaders, though, and how leaders truly suffer. And if we suffer, so does everyone that we're leading suffer. And we found a way through life coaching. I started with a coach that helped me tremendously, helped me develop different programs and ways to deal with stress and company morale. I'm a huge believer that if you want a very successful company, then you start with the base of the pyramid, and that being the frontline staff. If you have those guys that are content and happy, then you got a successful company. The people who are visiting the customers, that are facing the customers, are the ones we need to worry about the most. So we need to start from the top down to make sure that the leaders are in a good spot so that they can spread that kind of culture throughout all of that business. And I started here in Grand Prairie when the company decided to expand, sharing my philosophies with some of the senior leaders at the time. We decided to say, let's try this mentality across this whole corporation. It's been very successful. I go in and I like to call myself a heartfelt leader, and that comes from the life coaching. I lead with compassion and empathy, meaning that I listen and respect people and truly value the people that we have within our walls, and listen to them. And you'd be amazed how people respond to that. And then culture oftentimes can be decimated when they enter a corporation. But if you go in and do this right, you can keep that company that you bought. I think one mistake that a lot of corporations make is they buy a company expecting it to remain the same. But day two, after they made that acquisition, they have a different company. The past ownership feels very different about the way the company is because they no longer own it. They no longer call the shots, and all of the company underneath that person feel different about that company as well because the person that they looked up to and led the company for years has changed both personally and within the company. So that company changes drastically. So we can go in the very beginning and ease the fears and set the proper expectations up and help coach people through the fears that come with that. We can maintain and sometimes thrive that company as opposed to watch it falter and fail a little bit.
You touch on the human element a lot, and I get a sense that that's really important to you. And I can't tell you how much of a breath of fresh air that is to hear from somebody else. Being somebody who I have very closely followed a lot of Simon Sinek's work, the idea that we're playing an infinite game, and there's a lot more involved if we play the game that way because there's no winners and losers. Now the objective becomes playing the game as long as possible. And so I'm sure with the experience that you've had is over time, things change and people don't like that. And when change happens, it becomes increasingly difficult to help manage the ship, everybody that's involved in all of that. Are you noticing any trends in the work that you're doing in terms of just like the culture, like you mentioned, is shifting, the zeitgeist as a whole is changing, and maybe that was the COVID situation was a catalyst, or a number of other things. But what are you noticing in terms of trends in the industry right now for you?
Oh, there's tremendous amount of different trends, and you mentioned COVID, and COVID, even though it was a bit of a curse, was also a blessing. Many people before COVID, focused 100% on one quadrant of their life, and that was their vocation. We have 4 quadrants in our lives, right? We have health and relationships, right? We have vocation, and we have time and money freedom. That's our four quadrants. And before COVID, I noticed in a lot of areas we focused on one. That was vocation, sometimes money, and health and relationships kind of took a back seat. We actually had no choice but to take a pause in the world and go home and spend time with our family and focus on our health more. People came back to the world different, looking at it. They understood the value of vocation, but it wasn't everything anymore. That's why, we see that in the industry where it's not as easy to hire people away from their desires and sometimes their dreams. They actually want to focus more on what makes them happy in life, which is really good. I think it's amazing. They bring different people into the workforce at that point. On the other side of the coin, unfortunately, it makes it a little harder to find talent these days. It really is. For some reason, since COVID, it seems like we lost half the workforce in every industry. No, I don't think any industry has gotten away with it. So, it's a double-edged sword. People focus more on being happy now, I think, a little bit. Maybe it's starting to fade, and a little less on work. But then when we're trying to run an industry, that's difficult as well.
Yeah, I know. We probably have a little bit of an age gap. I'm 38. I guess, an elder millennial, proud to say so. And I know that when I was growing up, I was taught a lot about, this is the system, this is how everything works, it's going to be like this. So you enter into that system, and then you very quickly find out that it's full of holes, everything's falling apart, nobody's painted the walls in 20 years, you know what I'm saying? And so you're met with this disappointment, and then something like COVID happens, and it's like, well, if I'm going to fail at, or, have no loyalty to a job where I wasn't fairly compensated, the people treated me like crap, I had no room to grow, I was just a cog in the machine, and they find out like, oh, I can go on TikTok and do some dances and earn a little bit of cash every day. The idea of having these traditional roles in these environments becomes very difficult. And so, yeah, we are all kind of suffering from this idea of like, chase your dreams. You don't want to die with this resentment of never living your dream out, right? Yeah, being that you're a musician too, just like me, that this idea that we pursued that thing intentionally, although it's not the thing that can pay the bills as much as we would like it to. At least, I don't know about you, but I can say I tried. I really did. I put my whole heart into it. And so now we're faced with this idea of what do we do with this next generation? And then we're faced with all this other crazy stuff that's happening, like AI, right? You got these deep fakes, and you got these voice chat things, and you got texting and all kinds of other tools that are coming out. And it's almost like technically you don't really need these people. Does that resonate with you? Like, are you seeing some of those things happening for you?
I mean, for sure, there's a lot in what you just said, Don, back, and like we mentioned, being a life coach does shift my perception. I do believe that everyone should go for their dreams in life. I really do. I mean, I think we all have them, and we need to make sure that all of our quadrants in life are balanced. Vocation is only one of those. So as we have the younger generation coming up, and everybody, and it's funny because I've seen this so many times, everybody worries when we talk about this generation, that generation, and we're all worried about the one generation coming up behind us. And it's been, I seen quotes at a webinar I went to one time, and it was just funny, and it dated back to like the 1600s and the 1700s. And every one of them were saying the same thing. We're worried about the generation coming up. And the one thing I will say is that, AI, this and that, and it's all very, very important. We still need things in the world. So we're still gonna have to have a workforce of some sort. If it's a different workforce, maybe they've got it figured out. Maybe their work-life balance is a little bit better than the generations before us, because I've learned a few things that, and I love the generation I'm from and the generations before that, but sometimes we focus too much on one. Work wasn't meant to be enjoyed; it was meant to be endured. That was the idea. And well, what if we did enjoy it? What if we weren't afraid to ask those questions? Like, what if we did? What made us light up in the world? One of the things that we've seen over COVID, I think we can all agree, was there's a lot of negative thoughts that came to surface too. Mm-hmm. A lot of negative, whether we believe or don't believe, we can't deny that it's very much around us. So what if people did what made them light up in the world as opposed to what they felt they had to? I think we gain more. You're still going to get the people that want to do the service work. That's because we're all different. We know that no two people are the same. We're going to have people that want to be musicians. We're going to have people who want to be doctors just because they have a desire. So if we didn't worry too much about it and just let mankind and nature take care of itself, I think we'll be okay. We're not gonna suffer. We live a lot of fear. This world lives a lot of fear, and fear is everywhere we look. What if we just released it a little bit and showed a little more compassion towards each other, a little more patience towards each other, a little more acceptance towards each other? We are social media beings, and we see a lot of anger and frustration on that. And I feel bad sometimes for the younger generation. I didn't have that same growing up. I have it now. So if we could just fill the air with a little bit more compassion. Like I said, I'm a Heartfelt leader. I really believe in love. And when I say that, I don't mean, the Hollywood love. I mean fellowship. I mean, just being patient with each other. Just not going to anger and seeing the worst in each other and seeing us always just stuck on this rock that's flying through space, trying to get through. I think we could really, if the younger generation leans more on that than we did, I think we're winning instead of losing.
Man, there's this aura of optimism that you emanate. I can't tell you just how good it feels to hear somebody talk less about the doom and gloom and more about hope for the future, for what we're creating. And there's this weird TikTok interview thing that was floating around where they were doing like one of those quiz type videos, like it's a little quick quiz, and somebody walked in front of the camera, and the person who was being interviewed, or the interviewer, sorry, said to the person being interviewed, he's like, "Wow, what's up with that guy?" Right? And then the guy that was doing the interview responded with, "Never attribute to malice what can be attributed to ignorance or stupidity." And I just absolutely loved that idea that, oh, actually, that person didn't mean any harm. They are actually just stuck in their story, dealing with their issues, and they probably didn't even know something was going on because that's how wrapped up in their problems or challenges or whatever it was that they were facing. So this idea that you're putting out into the world, I think you're doing good work, man. That's it's such a good thing to hear. Which I guess would make it a lot easier for you to attract and nurture the right people on your teams. Do you have any challenges when it comes to like finding good talent and hiring high quality team members?
We absolutely do. And so it becomes even more important to make that. I mean, it's across every industry, right? We're a technology-based industry. So first of all, we need technical people, and we're also sales-oriented too. So we need salespeople. And we don't have a plethora of people to choose from. The same problem I said, since COVID, it seems like half the workforce went away. It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but is there some truth to that? And so we now have to focus on training. How do we train? So senior guys like myself and my colleagues, I work with some of the best people around. I have an amazing team I get to work with. So we have to focus on how do we get them? Okay, we attract them like this, that, or the other way. However, sometimes it's money, sometimes it's not. And then we need to train them. Once we go through all of that trouble, how do we keep them? And that's where this comes in. That's where people, come and go for money, but it's a lot more rare that they leave for money than they do because of the work environment that they're in. People will leave much quicker if they're unhappy with their work environment. So if we can, pay fair, and that's one thing, but also show people that are valued, listen to, that's how you keep them. That's how you inspire a workforce. There's nothing better than having everyone pulling the rope with you. I spoke about the bottom of the pyramid, and I mean that very, kind of tongue in cheek. There's no bottom. We're all equal within an organization. Every position is as important as any other position, but the base of the pyramid, because it's the largest part of the company, right? It's not the owner. It's the people that are seeing the customers. So if you can motivate those people, and that they're truly motivated, they truly feel respected. I always say they're going to pick up a screw in the parking lot so it doesn't go in the customer's vehicle when nobody's looking. Right? It's easy to whip people into battle when you're standing on them. But you can't do that. You can't do that. You need motivated people. How do you do that? You set up the right atmosphere to attract them that way. And word travels. Come work for this company. It's amazing. But we have to be sincere about it too, and not just do it on the surface. We have to believe it ourselves in order to do it.
I don't
That's very
remember if it was
important.
LinkedIn or Indeed who kind of flipped the script on businesses and gave the employees the option to rank what it was like to work for that company. I don't know if you've dabbled in this at all. I've gone through a couple of hiring cycles with my own company, and I know that if your company is getting a bad review on these platforms, it's going to be really difficult for you to attract the people that you're coming in. And so when you speak about like that reputation and making sure that your business is actually doing the things that it's meant to do, which is taking care of that foundation. Gary Vaynerchuk put it the best ways. They don't work for me, I work for them. So your goal is always to like create opportunities and put them in a space of abundance through the work that you're doing and the solutions that you're providing and the challenges that you're overcoming for your clients. And I wonder how much of that is kind of stifled by the stigma. You mentioned sales and technology, and there is a stigma that comes around with being a salesperson. And there's these younger generations that are coming into it that are well aware of the stigmas, and they don't want to be seen as these people that are tricking people or manipulating people or coercing them into doing things that they don't want to do, and especially in this really hyper public, everything's on the internet kind of a world. Do you see that affecting?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's again, it's a mind shift that we as senior leaders need to change. And that might be old thinking. I get that. We're in a different generation now, but if we set the expectations right, and we're not salespeople, we're solutions providers. We help people come up with solutions that they need and they want. We're just there to help them. Set the actual expectations of what this sales role or business development role truly looks like. And there's a lot of misconception about what it really is. People think it's just going, you're shaking it hands and you're stretching the truth, and I disagree. I think to be the most effective is, first of all, a sales position, in my opinion, is one of the toughest positions out there. People think it's an easy job. It's to do it properly, it's very difficult. You have to be wired a certain way. So you have to hire right in the first place. You have to hire the right person. That person coming in needs to know what's expected of them. But it's the onus falls on that leadership to say we never mislead. We do it with integrity. People need sales. People want your services. People want you to come in and say, "Hey, you got a problem, Mr. Customer? What's your problem? Let's talk about it. Let's design a solution for you." Now, everything I'm saying probably sounds pretty good to that person. It is technically sales or business development, but there's nothing shifty about it. It's a perception. It depends on the salesperson. If they think that's what it is, then that's not the right salesperson for you in the first place. If they think that you need to go in and mislead the customer, that's maybe not who you want for your organization. Or re-educate them. Say that's not what a salesperson is. I think a sales position is one of the most understood or misunderstood positions. I mean, I talk to so many people. To be honest with you, in my career, I talk to so many people who says, I can do sales. Sales is easy. Sales is this. And hardly any of them ever get it right. Very difficult. It's a very difficult position. It's a position where you need to be full of integrity. The day of the fly by night salesman, I think, is gone. The competition is so intense out there. We have to be honest. We have to be full of integrity, and we have to believe what we're selling makes a difference. If we don't believe it, then we're never going to sell it, and we're not actual salesmen. So I think the honest, you're right. People do think that. Somewhere along the way, we need to change that, because I don't believe that's true anymore.
Somebody said to me the other day that I'm a problem solver. So people talk to me about their problems, and then I do what I can to solve them. Whether or not they work with me, I'm just the guy that helps them solve the problem. I thought that was such a wonderful frame to put around that role, and it's empowering, right? It gives people the power now to be like, oh, actually, I can just act like a doctor. You can come to me and tell me your symptoms in your business, and then I can tell you, okay, based on sneezing, sniffly nose, coughing, sounds like you need this, right? I can make the prescription of, oh, well, you probably need a sales tool, or you probably need this or that. Is that?
I think that's exactly how we look at it. Solutions providers, doctors, a great way to put it. You have an issue, I have a solution to give you. Let's talk about it.
So, to kind of like bring things to a bit of a close here, there's a lot of new things that are coming out in the way of technology and tools that we can use. What is Prairie Mobile using or implementing inside of your systems and sales processes and things like that to help make your team's life easier?
It's funny because we're looking at it's forever evolving. Of course, everything's dynamic. Nothing's really that static anymore. But I think the right leaders, first of all, like a proper sales coach, and we have a great sales coach. And with the ever expanding landscape that we have to adjust, of course. But I think that's the first and foremost is we need somebody that holds salespeople accountable for their actions, of course, but also helps them in the areas that they need, whether it be four-legged calls, whether it be the technology, this is the right solution for that customer, this is the right pricing for that customer. I mean, that's one area, a real solid sales coach. As well as, of course, upper management. And then, like every other sales team, you have your sales funnels, you have your opportunity matrices within overall, ERPs or centralized systems where we can access inventory, we can access, other quotes and things like that. I mean, they're pretty standard for those parts. But I will go back again to having a motivated salesperson. So, I do work with senior leaders, and I do work with other staff. It's very much part of my role is to make sure that we're feeling motivated, and that we're feeling calm, and that we're feeling like we're making a difference, and we're having the kind of conversations like you and I have, and shifting perception. And it's very easy because the sales position is, again, I'll say it again, it's a very tough position. You're dealing with a lot of no's, and it's easy to do for one day or 2 days, maybe even a week or two. But 6 months, 2 years down, you've got to be cut from a certain cloth to be able to handle that. And that's the nature of the game. They say 10% is considered successful. So if you make 10 calls and you get one yes, that's successful. But you've got 9 no's. Mm-hmm. And that can be very tough on someone's mental health. You got to be cut a certain way. So to make sure that our team can handle that. And have the expectations of, no, you're not failing. Again, that falls on upper management to make sure that that's the message that comes across. We need to lean on salespeople because that's the nature of the beast, and that's the nature of most people. We need to motivate and lean and say, okay, we got to do this and the other thing. But do it in such a way that they're showing up day after day motivated.
Yeah, that's quite a challenge too, to be able to see what's coming and help your team implement things that are actually going to be useful, having proper training and coaching, and it's not just a one-time thing. It's like an ongoing therapy session that you have to continue to show up for, because some days it's like, yeah, I don't care if 20 people say no to me. Other days, like I had a bad day fighting with the girlfriend or something, and then I start getting attacked by all these people on the phone who I'm just trying to help, and so it can become very overwhelming. I'm sure for somebody who's like really new to the game, and that's
you're 100% nailing it there, and it's funny because I'll just put my life coaching hat back on again, or like master consultant hat back on again just for a second. But if I have a session with somebody, we usually leave that session feeling pretty motivated, as you can imagine. It's very sure what we're talking about. We're talking about how to deal with things that come at us at life. And then when you're in that 1 hour session or 45-minute session, you leave feeling great. That's great. I got this. And everyone leaves feeling, okay, I got my life mastered now, but that's not true. Because a week and a half from now or 2 weeks from now, we're going to be in the trenches and something's going to happen. We had a disagreement at home, or one of our coworkers or customers said no, we get disappointed, and it all comes rushing back in again. And that's where exactly what you said needs constant, and constant attention paid to it. rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And that sounds like I'm plugging myself, but I'm not. But that's why coaches are so important. So coaches can be, like coach, or coach can be your leader, your senior management, that we need to check in and we need to go back and say, hey, how are you doing? And please reach out to me when you're in there. The thing is, people don't usually reach out.
Yeah.
You have to go. The people, most type A personalities that are in management or executives or sales or type A, I got this. I'm not even that stressed out. Our life is good until you ask them a couple questions, and then they crumble and say, "Yeah, I'm actually just holding on by a thread here, and I'm the only one." You're not the only one. We're all like, everyone on planet Earth is like it. So let's talk about it, and that's the difference, man. I'm telling you, that's a game changer in corporations right there.
It makes that person realize or recognize that they are an integral part of something, and that, I think, is, again, man, you're doing incredible work. I'm so happy that we got to have this conversation, and the insights that you shared have been very valuable. Two things before we wrap this up. First thing, is there anything, Steve, that excites you in the way of technology and things that are kind of coming our way? Is there anything that you're looking or exploring currently for the work that you're doing, or for Prairie Mobile?
There's a lot of change, in traditional. We're in what we would call traditionally the LMR business, which is land mobile radio. So we do a lot of complex repeater systems and trucking systems, and down to simple things. That's still a pretty good staple. But there's other things coming on the market that I think are a game changer that we really need to pay attention to, and that's what we would call POC radios, PTT over carrier radios, and that's or Wi-Fi radios, handheld radios that now work on a carrier network, so the Teluses and the Rogers and the Bells, and they can give you coast to coast coverage without having to set up your own very expensive private network, or even simpler, on a job site. And I think that's really going to take off, kind of like the iPhone. No point in ignoring it, no point in saying we don't want it because it doesn't suit our business model. The technology is here. Let's embrace it and figure out how we can make this sustainable for everybody. And it's a good technology. It's we've dabbled in it in the past, but now it's positioned slightly different. So I think there's a real market for it. In hospitality, in construction, and many other different areas. And it's really starting to take off. All the manufacturers are making it. Video surveillance and analytics is becoming increasingly bigger market, more so than voice in ways, or the combination of both. Body-worn cameras and those things they're getting to be a much bigger part of our industry.
What do you make of the like deep fake stuff and voice AI and all of that? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
The technology's here. We don't go backwards. We got two ways to look at it. And I know there's a lot of fear around it. And there should be. Because like everything else, internet was great, but we found there's some evil to internet. There's some bad to the internet. And bad's not in the technology, it's in the people. So it's here. We're not going to get rid of it. AI is here. It's only going to get stronger. It's only going to get more used and more part of our lives. Do we fear it? What's the point? Do we embrace it? I think we do. I think we move forward with it. We see what it can do for us. We don't worry too much about the Terminator movies. I mean, it's all there. We think about it, right? We do.
Skynet shutting us all down.
That's great. But what if? I'll leave you with this thought. But what if we just thought about the positive side of it for a while? I realize we got to be cautious, and we got lots of people out there telling us how cautious we need to be. We got all the social media telling us, and all the news media is telling us, and everyone else out there to tell us what to fear. I'd like to challenge more people to think about what great can come from this instead of the fear. I really do. I think we'd be better off if we did that.
Man, we are in alignment on a lot of things. I had a conversation with one of my buddies not too long ago about, somebody somewhere is going to take this AI stuff and do bad things with it. Absolutely. And we've already seen some of that happen in the news and, in some of the stuff that's come out. And so I felt like it became my responsibility to figure out a way to use this technology that in a way that's actually going to help people. So just being another soldier, I guess, for lack of better terms, on the other side of the fight, pushing forward with things that I think are going to have an impact and make a difference in people's lives. So I think that what you said about that is spot on, man, and I couldn't agree more with you. in closing, if there was one piece of advice that you could offer somebody that's in a similar role or in a position where they're facing similar challenges, what would that piece of advice be?
I love that. I'm going to give my piece of advice that I give to everybody. Just remain as present as you can in any given moment. Just be here now. That is the most important, because there's challenges everywhere. We're never going to look too far to find a challenge. We're never going to have to, if we worry about all the things that are going to happen, we're never going to stop worrying. And in a role like I have, and I don't want to sound like a murderer or a hero, it's extremely demanding. Extremely demanding. And there's never a lack of issues. You're never going to go too far. And if all we do is consider and worry about all the things and the to-dos, we're going to be very unhappy. And we're going to be very stressed out. We're going to have a hard time getting through life. If we can find ways, and there's tools, we can find ways just to be as present as much as possible. We get it for milliseconds, but practice it and study in it and try and be positive to yourself and to everybody else. Then you'll get through this and you'll be able to think better as you're doing it. And as long as we can think while we're doing this kind of role, we'll be okay, because that's the only tool we really have. So my advice to everybody is learn how to be as present as possible. That's where everything is great.
I love that. Absolutely love that. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, Stephen, to further this conversation, how would one do that?
All the social medias, Stephen Cassell. You can always reach out to me on Messenger or Facebook or Instagram, or, that'd probably be the best way. It's so easy to find me, Stephen Cassell.
Perfect. I'll put that all in the show notes. That's it for this episode, Stephen. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. We really appreciate your wisdom and contribution to this show. Thank you for joining me here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Doug.